Okay, today we're going to go over how to set up the pressure transducers and the manometer, as well as use the flow bench. So this is for Bernoulli's lab, and what you're going to do is you get a bin. In that bin you'll have 2 pressure transducers. You'll have 4 sets of tubing, a DAC, the USB cable for the DAC, 2 BNC2 regular wire connectors, power supply for the pressure transducers, 2 bits of wire, a screwdriver, and a T-junction for the plastic tubing. So the first thing we need to do is we need to connect the pressure transducer to the power supply. To do that, you take them out of their boxes. Now the pressure transducers are the exact same pressure transducers. So we will need, right now, the 2 pressure transducers, the screwdriver, the 2 bits of wire, the actual power supply itself, and then the 2 BNC2 wires, bare wires. So what you're going to do is you're going to take this left one, COM is ground, middle one's V out, and the right one's V in. So what we're going to do is we're going to connect the V in and COM to one of them to the power supply. Then using the 2 wires, we're going to jump the V in and the COM from one pressure transducer to the other pressure transducer. And then we're going to take each BNC cable and connect the red insulation one to the V out and the black insulation one to COM. So what we're going to do is you're going to take your power supply, the one that's got the laptop adapter with the plug. You're going to take the end with the 2 connectors like this. The white connector goes to V in, the black connector goes to COM. So on this left pressure transducer, I connect the white wire to the V in and the black wire to COM. Now I'm going to take my jumper wires and I'm going to jump the V in of the one pressure transducer to the V in of the other pressure transducer. I'm going to go ahead and tighten the side on the V in first on this right pressure transducer. And then I'm going to connect the V in of this pressure transducer together with the power supply and tighten it. Now make sure that before you can start this that you've unscrewed the terminals enough to allow for both wires to come in at the same time. Then tighten it. Now I'm going to take this black wire from my COM side and stick it in, and then stick it into the one pressure transducer. And then I'm also going to stick in the input part, the COM part of the power supply. Then I'm going to take my BNC cable with this connector on one end, and I'm going to put the red on V out and the black on COM. I'm going to do this on each pressure transducer. So the one pressure transducer will have 3 wires in it. And then you go ahead and screw it in once you have all 3 wires in that place. And then the center wire is going to be your V out, the positive V out. So go ahead and screw that tight. And then on my second pressure transducer, I'm going to take my other BNC2 wire and I'm going to hook the black into the COM and the red into the V out. Go ahead and tighten the V out first. Make sure both sets of wires are on the COM side and go ahead and tighten those. And once you have those 2 in, once you have all that connected, go ahead and make sure that both pressure transducers have power by plugging in the power adapter. And you can see here that both pressure transducers have their lights on, meaning that they have been connected successfully. And the method we're going to do that is just taking the BNC cables that we have hooked up. So my red's my second pressure transducer, which will be the static pressure transducer. You just connect the BNC cable to AI1. And my green one here is my left pressure transducer, which will be my dynamic pressure transducer. And you go ahead and connect that to AI0. Then you connect your USB cord to the DAC and then connect to the computer and set up your VI. So that's how you connect the pressure transducers to the DAC as well as the power supply. By taking this one hose on the manometer, take your T fitting, connect that to the hose coming from the manometer, then you're going to take two bits, the two shorter bits of your core tubing, hook one end of each to the T fitting, then the first time we calibrate it, you're going to connect both to the high port on the pressure transducer, which is the left port, as you can see here on the video. So now that both of the pressure transducers are hooked up, we're going to learn how to use the manometer. Now you notice that you can slide this a little bit up and down. What you're going to want to do is make sure that you get the water level around the zero. The water level to show around zero. Now if it's off a little bit, say like this, what you can do is push the whole entire tubing up and down to get it zero. Now that you have it zero, what you want to do is make sure the pressure transducers are hooked up. Then what you're going to do is you're going to turn the pump valve to close all the way, open the pump valve a little bit to the left, and then you're going to use the little pump connected to it to apply a pressure. And you can see that the fluid moves. Now you're going to pump to just over 10 inches of water column, which is 5 to 5. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take a measurement, open the vent a little bit to let it go down a little bit, then take another measurement, let it go down, take another measurement, and keep on doing this till you get 10 with the hose connected to the positive side of the pressure transducer. Now you're going to want to make sure you do this and include a zero differential point. You must have zero differential as one of your measurements. Now, once you do the high side, you take the pressure transducer and switch both tubes from the high side of the pressure transducer to the low side of the pressure transducer, which is the right side. And then you're going to do it again. You're going to close your vent, open your pump a little bit, pump up to +5, -5, go past it a little bit, turn your pump off, vent slightly to get to 5 above and 5 below, which is 10 inches of water column, and then keep on venting. And then taking a measurement. Vent a little bit, get to a new height, take a measurement. And you keep on doing that until you have your 10 points. And again, make sure you get 0 as one of your points for the pressure on the low side. Now, I do not want to see any of this green liquid come shooting out the top of this manometer. So make sure you don't overpump it and that it goes squirting out. Now, if the manometer doesn't work, make sure that your vent valve is turned to the right all the way and that you have your pump valve open a little bit so you can apply a pressure. Also make sure that there's no leaks by your pressure transducer or the T-junction that is causing the manometer not to function. And then if you notice your manometer is not reading 0 or not reading the proper change, then make sure you vent your manometer all the way. Now the pressure transducer light doesn't light up. Check your connections and make sure they're all connected. So this is how you set up the pressure transducer and the manometer in this section of the lab. So now that we have the pressure transducer set up and calibrated, the next thing we need to do is set up our pitot-static tube. And what you're going to do is you have these two pieces. You have the pitot-static tube here, and you have your mounting system for it. You're going to put your mounting system on the back here. There's a little mount. Line it up, and then tighten the wing nut down. until it's tight by hand. You can see the mount right there. So again, how you put this on is you have two little knobs here, you have two little holes here, you line it up, put it in, and screw it down tight. So you can see your channel here. The way to use a pitot tube is the flow direction is going down towards the ground, so you have to put the pitot tube with the brass end pointing up, and you put it in from the bottom through here. And you can see it right here. Now make sure you keep the pitot tube as parallel to the flow as possible when you insert it. And one way you can tell is that in this little point back here there's a little line with a little pin in it, and you can see if the pitot tube passes over that line close enough, then you know you're parallel to the flow. You have one tube coming straight down, one tube coming to the side. This tube is a stagnation tube, this tube is a static tube. Tubes to the pressure transducers. One you can connect it to the high port, and that's your static pressure one. And the other one you connect to the low port. Then you're going to take a T-junction, connect it to another hosing, and then you can connect that to the port coming out of the pitot tube to the side, right here. Then you're going to take the other tube, connect it to the high port on the pressure transducer, where the static pressure is connected on the low port, and then you're going to connect that to the stagnation port on the pitot tube, which is the one going straight down. And then once you have that set up, you are ready to start going. So this is the configuration you use for actually collecting Bernoulli's results. Now, to collect the static pressure of the flow before you start actually taking measurements to calculate your density, you're going to take one pressure transducer, the one used for static pressure, plug in the tube to the high port, and you're going to connect it to the static port right here. It's the silver tube coming out of the front. So that's how you connect the fine density. To run the machine, you first select the flow you want. So you can see here there's a valve. You go ahead and select what you want. For this lab, you want to have it at 3/4 or below. Then you want to make sure that the plug is plugged into the wall, the outlet, and it's this gigantic 3-phase plug. So you're going to go ahead and plug it in. Once the plug's plugged in and you select your flow rate, you can start the flow bench now. There's a control panel on the side here. You can see a green and a red button. To start it, you press start, and then it starts the flow bench. To stop it, you press the stop button. Now before you take any measurements, you always want to have the flow bench running for a few seconds, then take your measurements. The dial on the actual flow bench, and you see here it says atmospheric pressure on the dial, and you can read what the pressure is in ambient. Now keep in mind that this is in kilonewtons per meter squared, so this is in kilopascals, so you need to convert that to pascals before you calculate your static pressure. And again, remember that right here is your static pressure port. The pitot tube must be pointing into the flow, which means the brass tip's got to be going in. And then when you connect the pressure transducers for the actual Bernoulli's part of the lab, you make sure that one tube is connected to the static pressure port, and then one in the T-junctions go to the low the dynamic pressure one, with the high port connected to the stagnation pressure port, and the high port of the static pressure transducer connected to the static port with the low port open to ambient. And again, to start the flow bench, you come to the side here, you hit the start button. To stop it, you hit stop. And to control the flow rate, again, you have it here. And again, remember, less than 3/4 of the full power. Now, common problems are when the pressure transducer's lights don't come up, make sure the connections are made correctly. So when the light of the pressure transducers don't turn on, make sure that all the connections are made properly. If you get the wrong density, it's most likely because you didn't connect the pressure transducer, one being the static port here, the other end being to the high pressure here on the static pressure, and then running the VI. Make sure that your channel shapes that are in this channel are snugly firm, and the TA will do that. Again, make sure your pitot-static tube is pointing into the flow. And then you should have a ruler on the side here to mark the distances so you can calculate the height you're at. So again, in the Bernoulli's constant equation, right here where my hand is 0, and up here is the highest value for H. For the manometer, keep in mind that this tube connects to the T junction, which is then connected to the 2 pressure transducers. You first do a calibration run with both on the high and then both on the low. This other tube is attached to a pump, which you use to pump up the pressure transducer. Before you start using it, you close the vent valve, open the pump valve a little, pressurize it up to about past 5 up and 5 below 0. Turn off the pressure valve, turn off the pump valve, and then slowly vent to get different heights, and then record your measurement.